Okay, folks. First of all, apologies. I realised that the video I recorded last week for Act 1, Scene 1, I had mute. I hadn't unmuted the microphone, so there was no sound. So I deleted that from YouTube, and hopefully this you will find in some way useful. So again, the plan here is just to get through the play. I love the play. I think it's brilliant, and I'd love to go into it in kind of academic detail, but we don't need to do that. My plan here is to make this easy for you to understand, and I'm going to do that step by step. So we're going to start off in the first scene of the play. And again, the crucial thing here is if I'm telling you things you already know, great, that's revision. And if I'm giving you anything that's new, great, because that adds to your ability to make interesting points. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to do the videos for Act 1. Then I'm going to do 2 videos where I show you how to use information from Act 1 to answer recent exam questions. Then we'll do Act 2, same thing, and so on. So you don't need to know all this, but it's just to show you how to, first of all, understand what the play is about, and then connect that understanding to the type of questions that you're going to have to answer if this comes up in the junior cycle in the summer. Okay, so here we go. We've already got the introduction done. Hopefully you've watched that video. We know that Antonio, he is the eponymous merchant of Venice. And at the start of the play, his first words establish a mood at the start of the play. In sooth, sooth means truth. In truth, sooth is a reference to God, God's truth, okay? In truth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff 'tis made of, wherein it is born, I am to learn. And such a warm want with sadness, makes me that I have much ado to know myself. Now, there's a couple of things I've marked there. I highlighted that. I'm not suggesting you learn it, but you might be asked to talk about the tone of the play or how the play opens. And it opens with our main character, the eponymous title hero. Okay, so the title character. And he is clearly feeling what we call melancholy. So melancholy is a kind of a deep-seated sadness. If you look, he says, I know not why I am so sad. If I was going to learn any quote from this particular part, that's a great quote to learn. Very simple language. Look at the words, each word of one syllable. I know not why I am so sad. So Shakespeare is the greatest wordsmith that's ever lived. So he's deliberately using language in a simple way because he's trying to catch our attention. He's trying to create curiosity for the reader. We have this central character. He is so sad, not just sad, but so sad. He doesn't know why he is. So that creates a sense of curiosity. We're drawn in. We want to know more about him. We want to know the source of this sadness and this melancholy. And that makes the opening engaging. Now, also note the repetition of the words wearies and wearies, which means tiredness. And also note that he says, I don't know why I feel like this. I haven't got any idea why. And he says, but I do know. I have much ado to know myself. So what Shakespeare is trying to do there is establish, maybe you're going to say he didn't succeed, is establish Antonio as an interesting character, as an intriguing character, somebody who, the whole play is about the Merchant of Venice, and he is the Merchant of Venice. Intriguing means, interesting enough that we want to learn more about his story, okay? So if you're asked about the appeal of the play, you could talk about the opening speech, the introduction to the central character, the sense of curiosity that the playwright provokes in the audience, and Antonio's reflection that I know not why I am so sad, how that creates curiosity, makes him an interesting character, and immediately draws us into the story of the play. There's something you could say. So he's talking to these guys, Salarino and Bassanio. Shakespeare uses this to introduce one of the key plots of the play. So Antonio is a merchant, okay? So a merchant is a businessman. And he's based in Venice, and Venice is a is a maritime republic. So maritime means it makes its money, its business is primarily to do with the oceans and the seas, ships, okay? So Antonio, he is wealthy, and we get this kind of plot device that makes the rest of the play, the plot that happens in the rest of the play, work. That he's invested his money in all these business enterprises in various different ships. So he's asked by these two guys, Salarino and Salanio, whose names, by the way, you do not need to know unless there's a key quote associated with them. He asks them, or they ask him, are you sad because you're worried about your money? Salanio, for example, says, misfortune to my ventures out of doubt would make me sad. So his ventures are his investments. And when Salanio says, is that what's wrong with you? Because if that was me and my ships were out there and I was worried about my money, that would certainly make me sad. Now, that all Shakespeare is doing there is introducing that plot line that becomes really important later on. That idea that Antonio has loads of money, but his money is at risk, okay? Because he's invested in these ships. They've gone sailing to all different parts of the world. Sailing is dangerous. You can have storms, lose your ships. You can have pirates. You can have attacks. So it's a business which involves a lot of risk. Salarino gives us one of the lovely images, and don't forget, imagery is something that you might be asked to talk about in your junior cycle from your Shakespeare play. And this is a lovely example of Shakespeare's use of imagery when he says, I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and flats. Now, shallows and flats, they're dangers. If a ship hits the shallows, if a ship hits the flats, it's going to get stuck or it's going to be breached. Its hull is going to break. It's going to sink. So this is imagery associated with danger. And it's very, very, very evocative imagery because it appeals to the senses. We can suddenly see that hourglass. We can see the sand running down that hourglass. And that's time passing. And what Salarino was saying is that he imagines that his friend Antonio must be really stressed, waiting for the news about whether his ships are safe and whether therefore his money and his investments are safe. But Antonio says, no, not at all. He says, believe me, no. I thank my fortune for it. My ventures are not in one bottom trusted, nor to one place, nor is my whole estate upon the fortune of this present year. Therefore, my merchandise makes me not sad. So you can see that what he's saying is, I'm a good businessman. I have made wise investments. Sorry. I've nothing to worry about. Even if one of my ships sink, or two of my ships sink, or three of my ships sink, that'd be very unusual. But I haven't invested it all in one place. And even then, if something did go wrong this year, I'd still be okay. I've got plenty of money. So Antonio is he's a complex character. He's wealthy. He's got good friends. He's melancholy. He doesn't understand. He's introspective. I'm going to write that word down for you. So in other words, he thinks about himself and his feelings. He's a thoughtful man. He's a reflective man. But he's also a steady and strong businessman. He sends his ships out to trade and to make money, and he doesn't gamble. And he tries to make sure that everything is as secure as it can be without worrying about insecurity. So this is what Shakespeare is trying to do here. He's trying to give us a sense of the merchant of Venice, this man, Antonio. The conversation goes on. Salanio asks him, well, maybe if it's not about money, then you must be in love. There's only two reasons why somebody would be feeling so sad. Either they're worried about their money or their, unrequited love. But Antonio dismisses that as well. And at that point then, this guy, Bassanio, arrives in. Okay? And Bassanio is, as I said in the introduction video, one of the four key characters in the play. So the four key characters in the play are Antonio, the merchant of Venice, Bassanio, his best friend, Portia, this rich noblewoman from Belmont, we're going to learn about her now in a second, that Bassanio wants to marry, and of course Shylock, the Jewish moneylender. So Bassanio rocks up with his friends Lorenzo and Gratiano. Lorenzo becomes important later on because he runs away with or elopes with Shylock's daughter, causing great pain and great anguish. And they have a conversation. And the only important part of that conversation before Antonio and Bassanio are left alone on stage is when Gratiano says to Antonio, "You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it that do buy it with much care." And Antonio responds with, and this is the bit I think is important, "I hold the world, but as the world, Gratiano, a stage where every man must play a part, and mine a sad one." Beautiful, again, imagery. And a really kind of clear insight into the way Antonio sees the world. His worldview is simple. He's accepting. He's saying, look, everybody has different experiences of life. Everybody plays a different role in life. And it looks like my role is not to be a happy person. He's not complaining about it. He's not moaning. He's not grousing. He's not desperate to solve his problems. He's kind of accepted who he is. Now, you might think, well, how does that make him in any way interesting? It adds a little bit of depth to his character, and it gives us a sense of who he is before the crucial conversation happens. Really, up until this point, nothing massively important, which is why I'm skipping over lines. And I know teacher might read every line in the play, and I know some of you watching this might be teachers who might think I'm doing this the wrong way and you should read every line. I don't think so. I want you as young people to enjoy Shakespeare, to get to the nub of the point, and to understand that you don't have to understand every word or every line or every speech in order to enjoy or indeed to understand the play and use it in a utilitarian way. So what happens then is there's a long exchange until Gratiano and Lorenzo exit. Sorry, no, get rid of that. And Antonio is left on stage with Bassanio. And this is the only really important part of the first scene of the play. Yeah, the plot about the ships is established, that's grand. But it's this interchange. If I was you, it's this interchange that I would be paying attention to down here, okay? So it's at the end of the long first scene of the play. Antonio, when he's left alone with his mate Bassanio, says, "What's the story? Is there anything new?" And Bassanio tells Antonio, and through dialogue, of course, in other words, his words spoken to his mate in the imaginary world of the play, they tell us as members of the audience what's going on. Okay, so he fills out some of the background to the story, and he says, "Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing." In other words, never mind him, he's waffler, talks a lot of nonsense. "More than any man in all of Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hid in 2 bushels of chaff. You shall seek all day ere you find them, and when you have them, they are not worth the search." Again, a gorgeous example of Shakespeare's use of imagery. It might be a little bit of a difficult image for you. Chaff is the part of a cereal crop which is of no use. The grains, they're the part of the wheat that is of value. If you've got loads of chaff and you have hardly any grains, then the ratio is wrong between what's valuable and what's useless. Bassanio, showing his wit and intelligence, is saying that Gratiano talks a lot, but the vast majority of what he says is worthless and of no value. And very rarely does he say anything that's interesting. So Bassanio is intelligent, he's witty, he's consoling his friend, he's trying to make Antonio laugh. They're clearly close friends. And Antonio says, "Okay, I heard some story about you wanting to marry some woman. Tell me about it." "Well, tell me now, what lady is the same to whom you swore a secret pilgrimage that you today promised to tell me of?" So we hear this background that Bassanio has told him, "Look, mate, when I see you tomorrow, I have a story to tell you about this woman I want to marry." And like it's a pilgrimage. The imagery there is of like a religious journey, like he's really serious about it. And Bassanio says, "'Tis not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled my estate by something showing more a swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance." Now that's the first quote in the whole play that I think it's worth thinking about learning. What is Bassanio saying? I am broke. I have no money, and it's my own fault. I have been living beyond my means. I have disabled my estate. In other words, he's not blaming anybody else. He's ruined his situation. And again, imagery is used because what he's saying is, when he says, showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance, he's saying, I was trying to live a life. I was spending more money than I actually had. I was trying to be someone I'm not. And as a result, I'm broke. So he's honest with his friend. He's telling his friend, I've essentially bankrupted myself. Nor do I now make moan to be abridged from such a noble rate. And he's not complaining. He says, I'm not moaning. It's my own fault. But my chief care is to come fairly off from the great debts wherein my time something too prodigal has left me gauged. To you, Antonio, I owe the most in money and in love. And from your love, I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I owe. So he's saying to his mate, look, you know I'm broke, and mate, I'm really sorry. I know I owe you loads of money as well. So this is the dynamic that's going on. Now, if you were Antonio and you had lent money to your friend Bassanio and he had squandered that money, and he admits he's squandered it, he's blown the money trying to show off, trying to be the big man, trying to show that he's something that he's not, wouldn't you be annoyed with him? Wouldn't you be going, well, hold on a minute, mate, right? We are friends, but where's my money? You've taken advantage of me. You've lied to me. You've failed me. You'd be annoyed with your friend. The point is that Antonio is not that. Antonio's response to his friend Bassanio is generous. Antonio's response to his friend Bassanio is indicative of his fundamentally decent character. He says, I pray you, good Bassanio, let me know it. And if it stand, as you yourself still do, within the eye of honour, be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means lies all unlocked to your occasions. I love it. Now that's a learner, right? Learn that. I'm going to put NB beside that because it's really important. Be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions. He says, look, I'm not annoyed with you. You still stand in the eye of honour for me. You're still honourable. You're still my friend. I'll never abandon you. And whatever you need, even though you already owe me money, whatever you need, I'm going to help you. So Antonio is the... Now, I'll be honest with you, lads. You'll see as I go through these videos. I don't really like Antonio in the play. There's an aspect of his character I really don't like. You'll if you know the play, you'll know what it is. I'll explain that in the next video. But here, Shakespeare's setting him up as a heroic character. He's setting him up as somebody who is... What's a hero? It's somebody who's exceptional, who behaves in a way that most of us wouldn't behave, who does things which are extraordinary and we admire them. So Antonio is certainly heroic here. He's loving, patient, loyal, generous, noble, all of those things that make us admire him. And again, if you're doing the junior cycle and you had that quote ready, I'm telling you now you're going to be able to use that quote in whatever. I'll show you with every question that we look at in the videos as we go forward. I'll show you how you could use that quote. So it's a great moment and it has a lovely triad in it. Be assured, my purse, my person, my extremest means, those three things lie all unlocked to your occasion. So whatever you need. And then we find out, the conversation goes on, why Bassanio, besides the fact he's just generally broke, why he needs money. And the reason is because there's a woman, her name is Portia, as you know, And she's the heiress of Belmont, this vast estate somewhere in Italy. And she's fair, not just is she fair, she's fairer than that word of wondrous virtues. Fair means beautiful. So she's beautiful and she's virtuous. So he doesn't just like her because of her because she's physically attractive, but he likes her as a person. And he says, sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. So she was giving me the nod, Antonio, like she was giving me the hint. How are you? Right? Her name is Portia, nothing undervalued to Cato's daughter, Brutus's Portia. So these are little references, you don't need to know this, but they're little references to classical learning. That's what's called a classical allusion. Some of the students who are doing the junior cycle this year might be studying the wonderful Shakespeare play, Julius Caesar, which is the story of Brutus and Cato's daughter, Portia. Anyway, he's saying, look, she's a beautiful woman and she's a woman of great character, just as the Roman Portia was a woman of famously great character. And he says, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. And this is the second quote that I really love. The four winds blow in from every coast, renowned suitors, and her sunny locks hang on her temples like a golden fleece. Now, see that there? I know you know what that is. That's a lovely simile. And it's another reference to classical, to the classical world. The reference to Portia is a reference to a real life person. The golden fleece is a reference to one of the Greek myths, Jason and the Argonauts going to get the golden fleece from Colchos. Okay? So he's saying her hair is blonde. She's blonde. And it's like there's so many men coming to want to marry her. It's like, people trying to win this, famous mythical treasure, like Jason going into danger to try to get his hands on the golden fleece. So it's a wonderful example of imagery, again, by Shakespeare, a lovely simile. And it captures something about how Bassanio feels about Portia. He's astounded by her. He thinks she's stunningly beautiful. He thinks she is, he's in love with her. Anyway, he goes on and he tells Antonio, oh my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of these people who've come to try to win her hand in marriage, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate. Now that's hard, but here's what it means. I can't get in the building, Antonio. I can't offer or try and woo her. To woo is to try to win somebody's love. Now she's giving him a hint that she's interested because she's giving him the message with the eyes. But I can't get in the building if I don't have money. In other words, she's really rich and no man is going to get to marry her if he doesn't have money as well. And what he's saying is, if I just had money, I know I could win this woman's love and then I'd be the most fortunate man in the world. So, what's he looking for? He's saying, gives a lend. Can I borrow some money from you? And Antonio tells him, well, look what he says. The third important quote from this scene. There's no quote, this is the most important one. I think these are interesting quotes to use. They're easy quotes to use given the types of questions you could be asked. Antonio says, thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea. Neither have I money nor commodity to raise the present sum. Therefore, go forth, try what my credit can in Venice do. That's the bit there. He's saying, Bassanio, I have no ready cash at the moment. My money's all tied up in these ventures, these ships that I've sent out. But I'm a man of great reputation. People know they can rely on me. People know my ships are out there and will come in. So go and borrow the money. No problem, mate. So he is unbelievably generous. Don't forget, Bassanio has already let him down. Bassanio has already borrowed money off him and failed to pay it back. But he wants his friend to be happy. So he says, no problem. And he says, that shall be racked, even to the uttermost to furnish thee to Portia to Belmont to fair Portia. Go presently inquire, and so will I where money is. And I no question make to have it of my trust, or for my sake. So what he's saying to his friend is, don't worry about me. I'm happy for you to go out and to borrow money. You go and inquire. I'll do the same thing. But we will get you the money. We will get you in to see Portia. You will have your chance to win the love of this woman that you profess to love so much. So it's a really, really, really good opening scene. It's long. As I said in the introductory video, some of Shakespeare is boring because he goes on a bit. The speeches can go on a bit if you're, young and you're just trying to get to the nub of the point. But it's a really good setup. You got this guy, an interesting hero, loads of friends, but deep set, inset, sadness, this melancholy. You got this kind of tension to do with his ships being out at sea and whether or not they're going to make it back. Then you have the love story. Bassanio wants to marry Portia. Portia has loads of guys coming from all over the world, like Jason and his Argonauts trying to win her love, like the Golden Fleece. And Bassanio needs to borrow money from Antonio in order to try to pursue this relationship. And because Antonio doesn't have any ready cash, he has to borrow money to give his friend Bassanio. So there's tension at the end of the first scene. And we're curious to know, will Antonio get the money? Will Bassanio win Portia's love? Will there be any consequences from borrowing the money? Will Antonio's ships come in? Will his sadness be cured? Will he become happy? There's loads to say. A great opening scene. So I think that's where we'll stop this video.